What is the scariest, most bone-chilling moment you have ever witnessed or have been told in your life? Mexico story. So a year later, when I was about 13, me and my siblings flew down to Mexico to stay with Nana and Tata, Mexican grandparents, and there was fuck all to do. It was summer in Mexico. What do? Play with the dust. So being bored, as I always was, I went to ask my dad, he lived there with Nana and Tata, if I could play outside, but he wasn't around. After searching and searching, no one was around, and when I finally found my Nana, she %100 ignored my question and got in the car and left to the market. So I'm like, okay, fuck this. I give myself permission, how's that? And I get to walking down the super dusty dirt road. I've been this way a million times, but I thought I would go about a block further than I'd been previously, and when I do, there's a cute little pond with a super tight ring of trees around it. I was singing to myself about how angry I was that no one was listening to me, and looking down at the ground. When I looked up, I saw about 12 super serious white adult dudes just staring me down about 30 feet down the road. I was super creeped out, but I didn't want to look like a wuss, and being an idiot 13, I just kept playing, pretending not to notice, because I didn't want to seem awkward, and I was embarrassed to have been singing out my problems. I look again and realize they're about 3 feet closer to me and still staring me down. No one is saying anything. It finally dawns on me this is no longer a safe situation, and I look at my options. I could run back down the dirt road, but it's about a mile back to the house and they're definitely faster than me. Then I notice there's a huge vineyard/field place on the other side of the road. It's totally full of dead sharp plants, and when I actually see them walking faster towards me now, I make a mad dash for the field. Half of my brain is yelling panic. The other half is like, am I a huge awkward idiot for jumping into this super painful field? I hazard a look behind me, and they are full out sprinting towards me. I prayed to Jesus and ran as fast as I possibly could, jumping fences, dodging cattle, just hauling ass back to my Nana's place. She had a huge tree and I could see it from this far away. I didn't look back besides that one time, and when I got home my Nana had just gotten back, and she asked me what on earth happened. I explained that a dozen angry white dudes were hanging out by the pond and they came after me. She flipped, and this is not a woman who flips. She dragged me inside and tells us to not go outside for the next few days. I heard her talking to my dad later that the gang of murderers fleeing America were still in town and they tried to get me, and my dad told us again not to go outside, but everything was fine. They didn't call the cops because that would just piss them off. I had a million cuts on my legs, but that was better than whatever those creepers had planned. My group of friends liked to play this game we called Run. We would play late at night, starting around 1 AM, when the streets would be empty. Our town is very small. We'd walk down to Main Street and stand around outside the post office or grocery store. We'd hang out, talking and bullshitting, until the local police officer drove by. We'd stand there just long enough for him to see us, and then we'd all scatter and run in different directions. The cop would chase us through town for the rest of the night. As long as we stopped, if he turned his lights/siren on, we wouldn't get in any trouble. We did this all the time and the cops seemed to enjoy the sport. Sometimes they would even get out of the car and pursue us on foot. It was exhilarating and so much fun. Anyways, one night we were playing this game until around 4 AM. The birds start singing and the sky started turning grey, so we decided to head home. As we are walking along a road parallel to the main highway, we hear this huge boom. We thought a bomb had gone off. We ran as fast as we could to where the sound had come from. We get to the local auto parts store and see that a truck had plowed right into the side of it. There weren't any police or emergency services there yet, and this was before cell phones, so one of my friends sprinted off to the nearest house to call 911, while the rest of us cautiously approached the vehicle to see if the driver was okay. I can't even describe what we saw. It was like the bottom part of this guy stayed sitting in the driver's seat, but his top half had just sort of shifted over to passenger side. He was in two pieces. I remember thinking how weird it seemed, because it all looked so normal. I mean, not normal, obviously, but in movies blood and guts seems a little surreal and stylized, and this was just, his mangled body was just sitting there. I'm not sure why it shocked me so much. It's not as if ominous music and mood lighting appears around every dead body. I roll. A few seconds later the tribal police from a casino 40 minutes away pulled up with their sirens blaring. A few minutes after that the police, ambulances, and fire departments start to arrive. Apparently this guy had stolen some money from the casino. The tribal police had been chasing him, but he ended up getting ahead of them. It had been raining, and there's a decent curve in the road by the auto parts store, and this guy had drifted over the curb and slammed sideways into the building. The really disturbing part was how the entire freaking town came out to gawk at the accident. It took them hours to get the guy's body out of the vehicle. People were camped out on every lawn and sidewalk, trying to catch a glimpse of the body. At one point a few volunteers grabbed a bunch of sheets and tarps to hold up around the scene, and then people starting going up on rooftops so they could see from above. This guy had died in a really horrific and brutal way, and all people cared about was seeing his corpse. Edit. I should probably mention that this was around 15 years ago, in a very small town, and the local police knew all of us pretty well. Please don't get yourself shot by trying to play run, kids. This actually happened to me recently. I posted it a few weeks ago in another thread, and copied and pasted it. So I'm currently going through a nasty divorce. I left my wife about 4 months ago and moved into a house by myself close to work. We have a 4.5-year-old daughter which I haven't been able to see for the last 4 months because my wife filed an injunction against me. Nothing happened. It was just divorce tactics. Luckily, she recently came to her senses and dropped the injunction, and now I have 50/50 timeshare with my daughter, which starts next weekend. Well, this past weekend my mom came to town to help me set up the house because you know, I'm a guy, and guys have no sense of decor, right? At least that's how my mom thinks, and when it comes to me, she's right. We bought a twin bed for my daughter's room, bought her Frozen, her favorite movie, themed furniture and decor. We got a bunch of knickknacks to decorate the whole house, candles, pictures, fake plants, rugs, etc. We did everything we could to make it more homey. Before we bought all these new rugs and set up my daughter's room, I kept my cat's litters box in my daughter's room for the past 4 months while it was empty. After setting up her room I moved the litter box to another empty bedroom. Well, my cat didn't like the fact that her box was moved. Apparently she had decided that room was going to be her room and absolutely refused to use the litter box after it was moved. Instead she would shit and piss on all the new carpets anytime my mom and I were out of the house. The entire weekend conducted of the two of us deep cleaning the new rugs with strong cleaning products every time she would shit on one. Finally I decided to put the litter box back in my daughter's room, which is right next to mine, until I could figure out a solution. Trust me, this is relevant. Fast forward to Monday late afternoon. My mom's flight is at 6 p.m. So we leave the house, go out for one last meal, and I drop her off at the airport. I get home around 6:30 p.m. to my newly furnished and decorated house. It definitely made me feel more at home. I had no plans that night, so I spent most of the night on the couch binge watching movies and drinking scotch. Around 11:30 p.m. I was pretty hammered and stumbled to my bedroom, closed the door, locked it, because monsters and vampires, and collapsed on my bed. I passed out instantly. Around 4:30 a.m. I wake up to the worst smell I think has ever hit my nose. It was so bad it actually pulled me out of my drunken sleep. It smelled like a combination of shit, sweaty ballsack, ogre trash, and blech all mixed together. My first thought was the goddamn cat took a shit on the rug again. I ignored it, rolled over, and tried to go back to sleep, but couldn't. The smell was that bad. Finally, I got up, unlocked the bedroom door, and peeked out into the living room to see if she left a surprise on the rug. Clean. I looked in my daughter's room and there was a nice turd in her litter box. So the smell couldn't have been my cat, at least what I was smelling. I shrugged it off, closed and locked my door, and collapsed on my bed. I laid on my bed staring into the darkness for about 30 minutes trying to fathom what I was smelling. Maybe it's a combination of my cat's shit and all the cleaning product we used over the weekend? Maybe a pipe burst somewhere? Did I forget to take the trash to the curb and I was smelling all the shit we threw away over the weekend? No matter what conclusion I came up with, none of it made sense. A little after 5 AM I get up and walk to the bathroom and sit down to do my business. I browse Reddit for a few minutes on my phone until I'm done. I flush the toilet then collapsed onto my bed. You know that draining sound the toilet makes after you flush it? I'm laying there on my bed listening to the toilet do its drain cycle until it finally stopped, and I was in complete silence. That's when I heard it, a sniff and the sound of someone clearing their throat, from my fucking closet. I don't know what happened, but I immediately jumped into survival mode. I jumped out of bed, grabbed my phone, unlocked my bedroom door, grabbed my car keys, and bolted out the front door, and jumped in my car. I started the car, and backed out of my driveway, and into my neighbor's driveway across the street. I shined my high beams at my house, while I called the police. They were there within minutes. The cops approached my car and I told them there was someone in my closet. I sleep in the nude, so the cops thought I was just some crazy drunk at first, but after 2 minutes of arguing they went in to investigate. They were in there for what seemed like hours and sure enough they come out with a very skinny, obviously homeless black man in handcuffs. They put the guy in the back of one of their cruisers and approached my car to ask me questions. Apparently this guy snuck in through the back sliding glass door while I was dropping off my mom at the airport. He admitted to looking for pills or something to pawn for pills when he heard me come home, freaked out, and jumped in my closet. The smell I was smelling was his terrible BO coming from my closet 3 feet away from me. This man was in my house the entire night. What if I didn't smell him and opened my closet the next morning while getting ready? What if I had my daughter over that night? The whole thought gives me shivers. I've told this story before, so here's the cut and paste version. I was studying for finals back in my undergrad days at the University of British Columbia's main library. Those of you who are familiar with UBC, this was before the renovations. Most students preferred the newer Kerner library, but I liked the old one because it was quieter and the texts I needed were stored there. I recall going down to the lower level to search for a book. The main library shelves were old-fashioned and tightly arranged to maximize space. The walk space between shelves could barely fit 2 people standing side by side, and in most cases, you pretty much had to walk out if anybody wanted to move past you in the aisle. In any case, I was browsing the stacks when I heard a book fall off a shelf in the aisle directly in front of me. I was certain of being the only person in that part of the library, but nevertheless chalked it up to somebody being careless. It didn't take long before I heard another book fall, again, from the same location. I ignored it until a third book dropped to the ground, but this time it was almost right next to me. The book in question was big, about the size of an encyclopedia. I thought somebody in the other aisle was inadvertently knocking stuff off the shelves by shoving books on the opposite side too far in. So I walked out from behind my aisle to see who was being a pest. Didn't see anybody at all, nor heard anyone walk away. The floors were old hardwood and creaked in some places. Right as I was about to get back to my research, another book fell in the aisle I was in. I remember calmly putting the book back onto the shelf, picking up my stuff, and going back upstairs. Then I hightailed it out of the main library